arrogant. Now, what's interesting is that Eddie Hearn over here, you see his big hand. Eddie Hearn, he promotes Andre, but he's not doing anything to get his back, it seems like. Seems to me he's siding with Alvarez up here.
What you saying? Get out of here. What the fuck you? Don't talk to my dad like that. Hey, fuck you. We don't get that shit.
Hey, get the fuck out of here because I'm gonna fuck you up right now.
Now, when other guys do this, it's no problem. People do this stuff all the time. But all of a sudden, it's a big deal. So Andre's been trying to get this fight for a long time, and it ain't happened. So, I forget who he's scheduled to fight next, but this is the trend right now.
I'm okay. Come. Be a bitch.
Oh,
Fuck you. All right? You got time?
Hey, get the fuck out of here.
While Eddie Hearn just sits and smiles. See that?
Hey, you got guys, please.
I don't like him either. So, another undefeated black fighter trying to make his way. Lennox Lewis just defeated Vitaly Klitschko. Watch how Larry Merchant treats the winner of the fight. This is Larry Merchant again. It's always different with these fighters. Now, Lennox Lewis took this fight on 1 week notice. He was supposed to be fighting someone else. I can't remember who it was. It was a long time ago. But he took the fight on 1 week notice, and he had been involved in a lot of other different things too, I have to say. So he wasn't in the best shape of his life, but he still went in there and he did what he had to do. And, well, see for yourself.
Congratulations, Lennox. You said that he had no skill level.
Now listen. The immediate interrogation. It's never an interview with Larry Merchant and black guys. It's almost always an interrogation. And people get tired of it.
Heavyweight champion of the world after the drama.
After 6 grueling rounds of heavyweight championship boxing here at Staples Center, Los Angeles, the bout is called to an end. Referee Lou Moret, acting on the advice of Dr. Paul Wallace at ringside, has called a halt to the contest because of severe injuries suffered by Klitschko. The winner, officially at the end of 6 rounds by TKO victory, and still a heavyweight champion of the world.
All right.
Lennox.
Congratulations, Lennox. You said that he had no skill level and that he had no heart.
Listen to
what
this
do you
troll.
say now?
Well, if the fight would have went more, they should have
No,
stopped.
the fight didn't go more. What happened in the 6 rounds? What is your impression
Listen
of
to
him
him.
now?
It's okay. Then what do you want me to say?
I want you to say what you say. Was it a harder fight than you anticipated?
No, not really. I was getting to him. There's no way he could have finished the fight. You look at the state of his face, there's no way. He's lucky the fight was stopped. I was just getting to him, and he was just deteriorating anyway. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just asking you for your impressions because you seem to dismiss him that he could even compete with you.
Well, yeah, of course he can compete with me. That's why he's here in the #1 position.
Well, I understand.
Keep in mind, he's interviewing, or the way I stated, interrogating the winner of the fight. This is the winner, okay?
And you were behind on all the judges' scorecards.
Listen, he would have got knocked out the next couple of rounds. It was just a matter of time. He was definitely deteriorating. So I don't even know what you're talking about now.
Stop. Lennox is telling the truth here. He was deteriorating. And Lennox Lewis was landing numerous uppercuts, snapping his head back. His eye was so cut up it looked like ground beef, and Lewis was taking advantage of that as well. He's right. It was only a matter of time. The guy was going to get chopped down, and that was going to be the end of that. Plus, his eye could have been damaged if it wasn't. It could have been damaged permanently. But he's being interrogated by this
Tell you what the score is.
Huh?
I'm just telling you what the scoring of the officials was.
Oh, okay. So, anyway, the referee's lucky he stopped the fight. Anyway, look.
Lennox is so mad he's confused. He said the referee is lucky that we know what he meant, but he's just had a brawl, and he's in the face of an idiot.
The state of his face.
Would you say now that he has no heart?
Well, you would have seen the next couple rounds. He would have probably.
You don't want to give him any credit, it seems.
I do give him credit. He's in number one position. He's my man.
He's not giving him any credit. He's saying Lennox Lewis is not giving him any credit. He's not giving Lennox Lewis any credit. The fight was stopped because Lennox Lewis busted the man's eye up so badly that he probably is going to need he probably needed a plastic surgeon.
I gave him a chance to fight, and I dismissed him in the sense of I got to look at the state of his face.
What made him difficult to fight?
He's got an unusual style, European style. Plus, I only had a week to prepare for it, so
He seemed to be able to somehow avoid your big right hand. How did he do that?
Well,
He did.
I wouldn't say he avoided them, and like I said, the next couple of rounds would have told the whole thing.
Were you tired? You looked like you were tired as well.
I'll just get my second win, Larry.
Were you hurt by a punch in around the second round? It seemed that it shook you a little bit. Were you surprised? Did it wake you up?
Yeah, it definitely did wake me up. We're big guys. Any punch from both of us is gonna hurt. So I hurt him a couple of times, even more times than he hurt me.
Was your plan to make it this kind of a brawl because you felt that he had never been in such a fight and that he could not go a distance?
I still feel he cannot go the distance with me. As you can see, he was definitely deteriorating. That's why I was trying to stay close to him and slugging it out, because he's never been in a dogfight. Most of his fights that I've seen, he's just stayed back and basically jabbed, did what he wants, and that's what happened. So my plan was just to go in there, dog him, stay close to him, make him throw a lot of punches.
I don't recall your being in too many dog fights like this. This was a tremendous fight for 6 rounds.
Lennox Lewis has been in all types of fights. This is the man that has beaten everyone that he faced. If he got beat, he went back and beat the guy. Lennox Lewis beat everyone that he fought, and he's underrated. He's another one. He'd be a god if he had a different complexion.
Yeah, I wanted to be in a dogfight, because I know when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I'm tougher than him.
Could you see through the eye?
Now, this is the loser. Let's see how he's approached.
I see
Look
very
at his
well.
eye.
I don't know why.
And you all can't see the worst of his eye. You should have seen it when it was being worked on in the corner.
Doctor stopped the fight. I feel me very well. I can fight. I know. It's Lennox Lewis promised to knock me in 5 rounds. I know. Why you know? Because he don't have condition in 5 rounds.
How could you tell he wasn't in condition?
He's very heavy. I saw every punch. He don't punch me very hard. This was not.
It's interesting because he saw every punch, but his eye looks like hamburger meat. His head was snapped back numerous times with uppercuts, but he saw every punch.
It's everyone, so I'm good prepared for this fight. I take everyone jab. I punch him with everyone jab.
How were you able to avoid his right hand? Could you see it that easily?
He never one time punched me very hard with my right hand. Because
So he never punched him very hard with his right hand, but his left eye seems to be quite messed up. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'm crazy.
I saw every punch. He's a good fighter. He make great fights. I know in this fight, when doctor don't stop, I win this fight. I win this fight by point, You can see my fight record. I can knock in first round. I can fight this last round and knock him in 11 or 12 rounds. I want rematch. When doctor stop the fight, I won't fight again. I show for everybody I can be Lewis.
Will you give him a rematch?
If it calls for, if the money's right, yeah, definitely.
Why do you think the fans were cheering him and booing you at the end?
I wouldn't say that, Larry. You know, I wouldn't really say that.
Because, do you think maybe they were just surprised that he fought better than they anticipated, and they were cheering for the underdog?
I wouldn't say that, Larry. I wouldn't say that. I would say that they like a good fight. The fact that he stuck in there with me for those couple rounds, I made it a good fight. I think that's what they appreciate. But like I said, if the fight would have went on, he definitely would have retired. I would have knocked him out. It's just a matter of time. I was definitely getting to him. Look at the state of his face. You know, I'm number one. No guy tests.
Well, you are the champion. But what might have happened, we don't know. What did happen, we do know. Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, he busted him up. That's what happened. This is sad.
This is the best. I laid them all to rest.
Larry Merchant and Vitaly Klitschko appear to have taken something of the gloss off Lennox Lewis' reign, at least for now. So
you see the reaction, and you heard this fool. So even when the black man wins, he still loses. So many times, it seems to be that way. And I didn't want to have to talk about this, but they're saying that Terence Crawford is playing the race card.
BBC, they would have stripped me. And I don't care what you say or anybody else say. This is my life. It's my prerogative. You do your job, I do mine.
Do you think anybody wants to see this kind of...
And this is what's going on here.
Bernard.
Here's what's going on. They didn't want to raise... They never raised Bernard Hopkins' hand for his victory in this fight. And they criticized him for who he was fighting, even though it was a mandatory. Now, Bernard Hopkins, he had a middleweight title defense record. He defended his title like 19 or 20 times. Okay? This guy, he had lost to Roy Jones Jr. early in his career, and he didn't look back. He won everything there for a long time. This is the guy that I think he had his last fight at, he was close to 50, I can't remember, but he was winning everything. He later on came back and beat Roy Jones Jr. in decision when they were both older, but you know, this is a guy who deserves a lot more than what they've given to him. So they didn't raise his hand after the fight.
Bernard, aren't you embarrassed by this?
See? Just one, but he's being interrogated. Another black guy. Now, Klitschko got a great interview as if he were the winner. Lennox Lewis, the winner, was interrogated. Now Bernard Hopkins, the winner, is being interrogated.
A great fighter having to fight.
A mandatory that's by the rules. I have to fight because they would do like Roy Jones didn't want him to do before he fought John Ruiz.
Don't tell me about anybody else.
If I didn't fight, Larry, stop being ignorant. If I didn't fight and defend my mandatory with...
Bernard Hopkins is another hard man. You don't want to play with him like that. Larry Merchant is a fool. You heard what he told him. He told Larry, stop being ignorant.
Defend my mandatory with the WBC, they would have stripped me. And I don't care what you say or anybody else say. This is my life. It's my prerogative. You do your job, I do mine.
You think anybody wants to see this kind of fight again?
Well, it don't matter if they want to see it again.
Well, how do you get paid if nobody wants to see it?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm not leaving out here without a check tonight. So let me tell you something. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know what kind of degree you got, but I got paid tonight.
But I can assure you it won't happen again.
Well, I'll tell you what, Larry. Unless you got powers other than being a commentator, then that's a part of the business and part of the problem. So since you exposed that to the world, let's move on to other issues.
Did you catch that?
Middleweight champion.
Did you catch that? See, they think because Bernard Hopkins has been in prison when he was a young man that he's some kind of a stupid fool. But he's far from a stupid fool. Listen to what he said to Larry Merchant. He said, since you exposed that to the world, see, he's smarter than Larry.
Let's move on to other issues. I want to fight the junior middleweight champion. The powers other than being a commentator, then that's a part of the business and part of the problem. So since you exposed that to the world, let's move on to other issues.
Bam.
We're gonna fight the junior middleweight champions, the so-called the best. Hold up.
Isn't it embarrassing for the middleweight champion of the world to be calling out junior middleweight champions?
Well, junior middleweights is only 5 to 6 pounds away from middleweights. I mean, junior middleweights always been middleweights. Come on now, Larry. 15 years ago, they didn't have junior weight classes in boxing. It was welterweight, middleweight. Come on now.
Right.
Isn't it embarrassing when other fighters call each other out in different weight classes? So why is this so different? Because it's Bernard Hopkins?
Yeah.
Are you part of the system or are you with the system?
Winky Wright has stated he wants to call you. Do you want to fight Winky Wright?
Well, is Winky Wright paying me or who's buying the fight? It depends on what the licensing fee is. It depends on what my share is. I don't fight just to be fighting. I did enough of that on Philadelphia streets in Philadelphia for free. So yes, I will fight anybody. But the fight is no problem. You got to make the fight. The dollars got to make sense. And we can move on and you can see better fights, Larry. I don't have an attitude. I just want to get paid for my labor like any other working class citizen in America.
Well, look.
Bam.
I just want to get paid for my labor like any other working class citizen in America.
Boom.
Well, it looks like tonight you got paid for doing not much.
Let me tell you something, Larry. You get paid every day on the TV for not doing much.
Wow.
See, but the Bernard Hopkins of the world and the Roy Jones Jr.'s and people like that, they don't put up with that type of nonsense. There's a big difference in how they handle things and the way these little passive guys who don't want to rock the boat handle things. See, you got to handle things like a man. That's how it has to be. When you let people walk all over you, and they'll continue to walk all over you, you're letting them know how it is that you will allow yourself to be treated, and they will walk on you like you are nothing if you let them.
All right, George, let's take it at face value here, okay? He's calling out junior middleweights. He wants to fight Oscar De La Hoya or Vernon Forrest or Shane Mosley. He's named all those guys. Now, on the surface, you might say, well, Bernard's a 160-pound fighter. He's taller and stronger on paper than those guys. But he's not a big enough puncher that he ought to be totally intimidating to them, right?
When you've had a night like tonight, Hopkins, this was a terrible night for all involved. You got to do something like talk a lot, create some controversy because there was nothing in the fights at all.
See, George, again, going along to get along. Going along to get along. Now, a lot of times, George will support the fighters. A lot of times he would do that, but this is the other side of that. And it is what it is. Check it out.
You know, Crawford had been mentioned before around Manny Pacquiao, but I really think that Manny has no interest in that fight. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did he mention as to why there was no interest in fighting Terence?
He thinks that Terence, with his skill set at this stage of Manny Pacquiao's career, would be too much for him.
So he's honest about that. He realizes that.
Yeah, sure he's honest about it. He's a senator.
Which means sometimes they're not too honest, Bob. You know that. Looking at Manny, he has this fight with Matisse. Have you been in contact with him? How's he looking over there in the Philippines training for this big fight?
Everybody says very, very good. Very good. The guy I rely on is Justin Fortune, who claims that Manny's in tremendous shape.
From what we see in Manny at this point, and knowing that Matisse comes forward, is this a style matchup that it favors Manny, given that he's always done well with opponents that come forward and come to him?
That figures, yeah, but you don't know at this stage of Manny's career whether that would be enough, But Matisse is a good puncher. Again, at this a sort of end period of Manny's career, it's hard to make a prediction.
Do you think then in 2 fights he will go into Lomachenko, or do you think after this fight, if he is victorious?
He's talking about fighting him by the end of the year. I think this will be the last year that you'll see Manny in the ring.
It's been a fun ride, riding the...
So Manny Pacquiao refused to fight with Terence Crawford, according to Bob Arum. Said Manny saw his skill set, didn't want to fool with that. That's what Bob just said.
Pretty well it's been the case. So you just have to hope. Manny Pacquiao is a wonderful person. He brought a lot to the sport. He does a lot for his country, and you wouldn't want to see him get hurt.
Would you have reservations if he said, next fight I want Terence Crawford?
Well, I killed the fight. Yeah.
You wouldn't want that for Manny?
No, because I would know how it would end.
So he's telling him he killed the fight. He either said he would kill the fight or he killed the fight. So he said, hey, he's not going to give that fight, whether Manny wants it or, and we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. You know, Pacquiao may have wanted to go ahead and do that fight, but maybe not. The point is, we're hearing different reasons as to why Crawford did not get that fight with Manny Pacquiao. And this is the second reason. Now he's saying it's, you know,
I knew it.
He stopped. He doesn't want him to. He doesn't want him to get hurt.
Serious disability for Manny.
He wants to protect Manny.
No, but as a fight.
And he may have said something else prior to all that. Let's see.
Go down to 135.
You know, Crawford had been mentioned before around Manny Pacquiao, but I really think that Manny has no interest in that fight. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did he mention as to why there was no interest in fighting Terence?
He thinks that Terence, with his skill set.
Okay, going back to skill set, there was a point at which he also mentioned COVID.
It would only end one way.
You wouldn't want to see Manny take a lot of damage.
Now he's talking about protecting Manny
towards your
Pacquiao.
emotions, putting him in a position like that.
Forget my emotions. I wouldn't want to see him take that kind of damage because it might affect his future life, quality of his future life.
So he's concerned with that. But he's supposed to be promoting Terence Crawford. And since Manny Pacquiao is a grown man and can make his, make his own decisions, he is still fighting. He was still fighting professionally at the time. Interesting, no matter how you look at it. But the point is that he's changing the reasons.
Quotes, I guess, from his lawyer recently, frustration about big fight. Do you share in his frustration? I imagine you guys are doing, all you can to make these fights happen. So do you share in his frustration?
No. I mean, except it's frustration at a large extent based on the pandemic. I would have had
the pandemic.
Crawford fight with Manny Pacquiao done for the Mideast. All the numbers were agreed on by the fighters with the country.
You booked a sunny Verbo ski chalet with endless views of snow-covered
So blaming the pandemic now.
And then, of course, the Minister of Health said you can't go ahead because we can't assure that you'd have spectators because of the COVID. Well, so the deal didn't get killed. The deal got punted to the spring. And if we get a vaccine and if the COVID is somewhat under control, I'm sure we could renew that and get that fight on.
So, I mean, what is it really? He's come up with so many different things. What is it really? And see, so with him, he's a lawyer anyway. They're pretty much known for telling lies. Hey, I hate to say that, but whatever. The point is this. He said so many different things at this point. And so I can only imagine what Terence Crawford might have been going through dealing with this guy.
The fight for him that I guess he would look for would be Errol Spence against him. And Spence is fighting December 5, and if he gets by, I would think that is a good fight.
We know he didn't make that.
That they're interested in.
We know that he didn't make that Errol Spence fight happen.
In the Mideast, as I thought, was Pacquiao against Crawford.
Was it ever just more than money, you think? Do you think Manny, is there any that he didn't take that fight also because stylistically what Terence can do, or You think if it was just money?
Manny is a professional, and a professional looks at the money. All the other things are just talk.
Do you get the sense, Bob? This is what a lot of people are counting.
Did you all catch that? Please listen.
That he didn't take that fight also because stylistically what Terence can do, or just money?
Manny is a professional, and a professional looks at the money.
Manny is a professional, and a professional looks at the money. So what does that tell you? So now, is Manny black? No, but in this environment that we all live in, he's still above us. So he's not black, and that matters. So he's a businessman. He does love for his country. He's a businessman, and businessmen look at the money. Isn't that interesting? So they're saying the black men, and again, I hate to have to deal with this, but this is about Terence Crawford being accused of playing the race card. So the black men that talked about money, Bernard Hopkins, right? Roy Jones Jr., okay, talking about getting their money. Demetrius Andre's trying to get paid. Everybody's trying to get paid, but Roy Jones Jr. and Bernard Hopkins, what was said when they were talking about the money? They should just be satisfied with the money they're making. Just fight and go home and be satisfied. Why are you complaining? See, it's complaining. Everybody else can negotiate for what it is that they want, but not the black guys. You just be satisfied at these crumbs and, shut up and fight. And it's interesting because, I stated before that, boxing is just a microcosm of the larger society. And that same thing takes place all the time in just about everything. Didn't somebody tell one of those basketball players, just shut up and dribble? In other words, we don't, you're not smart enough to just shut up and dribble. It's an ongoing thing. So Manny Pacquiao is a businessman. And any good businessman is going to be looking at that money. But every time you look up, all these other guys, they shouldn't be looking for money. Terence Crawford, he shouldn't be looking for money. And that's supposed to be Bob's guy. What is going on? Is there a double standard? Come on, we don't have to ask that question. We know there's a double standard. But, just how bad is it? It's in everything. So,
Assure you that's not the case. And maybe that was the case 2 years ago. That's not the case. Wake up and smell the roses. You understand? If PBC does pay-per-view, it's limited. Why is it limited? Because based on the Fury Wilder fight, over 30% of the pay-per-view buys were on the ESPN Plus platform. They were subscribers, and now there's so many more.
All about the money.
I'm sorry. Do you feel that Terence should say more or be more vocal? I mean, he said he wants to fight everyone, but you remember Antonio Tarver, he crashed Roy Jones' Floyd. He barked Oscar's name every chance he could to eventually get that fight.
But Terence could certainly do a more vibrant reach out to the press, to the people. I mean, after all, he's associated with the biggest platform in sports, ESPN. And why isn't he utilizing that? Why isn't he putting the time in, going on with Stephen Smith, going on
No, why aren't you doing that? See, they want him to play that role and go the you-know-what route. They want him to go the you-know-what, the route. That's what they want the brothers to do, go the in route, so that they can, so that they can be hated and sell tickets based on hate. Well, they're already hated for their color. What do they need to do anything else for? Okay? But they want them to be so undesirable by the already racist public at large, not everybody, but you know the deal. That will sell tickets. So it's like we'll sell tickets like that. But Bob's supposed to be selling those, getting those, getting the interest up and getting his fight made. Because Terence is doing his job. He's knocking people out. I don't care what he says. And again, with the double standard, because if they go out and promote themselves, by getting in people's faces, as he said, and doing this and doing that, then they're going to be demonized. What was young Shakur complaining about? If I say one little thing, he said, then they don't like me, and they saying this and they're saying that about me, But Tyson Fury can go out and so on and so forth. They can say crazy stuff, and nobody's saying anything to them. Is there a double standard? Again, it's in black and white. So Terence Crawford, he shouldn't be concerned about the money. What he should be doing is go promoting his own fights. Well, why is Bob there and there? I've asked that question before. It doesn't make any sense. Furthermore, does Lomachenko do anything to promote? And he's not nearly what they make him out to be. Just what does he do? What does and they're acting like he's the greatest thing ever, which is ridiculous. And Tyson Fury is a dirty cheat. I'm going to do a special video about Tyson Fury, because everybody thinks that thing ended properly, and nothing about that was proper. Nothing about his situation, that trilogy with Deontay Wilder, nothing was proper. Nothing was proper. And I'm going to deal with that. And the ending was not proper either, for those of you that think it was. But back to Pacquiao. Pacquiao doesn't do anything either. Pacquiao sits around and acts like he can't even talk. It's okay for him to act somewhat distinguished. He can be that way. What's the difference in how Terence Crawford conducts himself and how Manny Pacquiao conducts himself? Well, because one's black. What's the difference in what's the difference in how Terence Crawford conducts himself and how Lomachenko conducts himself? Although, well, never mind that. But there's not much difference in what's going on out there in the public. There's nothing really going on out there in the public with these guys, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine if you are of a certain complexion. But apparently it's not fine with Crawford.
With Max Kellerman, why isn't he doing that?
Look at this.
I mean, it's like pulling teeth, particularly if there's no fight, about getting him to really be involved. There are other people, Floyd Mayweather, to really be, about getting him to really be involved. There are other people, Floyd Mayweather didn't become this major pay-per-view star by accident. He worked on it.
I think it's especially